They dragged him into the courtyard at dawn. My brother, my only brother, knelt in the date. His face blooded, eyes swollen shut, but his back straight. I could barely stand watching. We all knew what was coming. The king had chosen his wife. Yeah, the king's guard had come in the night, storming their little hut like wild dogs. Yeah, screamed, crouching their newborn son. But it didn't matter. My brother fought, of course. That's why he was here now, on his knees, waiting for the king's justice. Everyone feared the king. He was a man who took whatever he wanted. Women were his favorite things to take. If you were beautiful, you prayed, you will never catch his eye. If you were married, you prayed even harder. It didn't matter if you were someone's wife, mother, or daughter. If the king wanted you, he had you. And if your husband or father tried to fight back, the king killed them. It had been this way for years. Some say the king wasn't born this way, that he was once a good man. But power does something to people. The elders used to tell us stories about kings who thought they were gods. I used to think they were just story. Now I wasn't so sure. I stood among the crowd, trying not to cry. My brother's life was hanging by a thread, and I was helpless. He had defied the king, and no one who did that lived to see the next sunrise. The king stepped forward, dressed in his bright robes, gold dripping from his arm and neck. He looked at my brother like he was nothing. You dare to defy me, the king said. His voice was cold, flat. You dare to question my rights? My brother spat blood onto the dirt. You have no rights, he said. His voice was hers, but steady. Yeah, is my wife, not yours. You can take my life, but you will never take that truth. The crowd gasped. People shifted, some looking away, some staring wide-eyed. No one talked back to the king like that, not ever. The king laughed, a short cruel sound. Then I will take both, he said. He raised his hand, and the guards grabbed my brother by the arm, dragging him to the edge of the courtyard. I wanted to run forward, to beg, to do something, but my legs wouldn't move. Fear held me still, my heart pounding so loudly I could barely hear anything else. And then something happened. The wind changed. It was sudden, sharp. The trees bent low, their branches creaking like they were whispering secrets. The air grew heavy, thick, as if the earth itself was holding its breath. And then a sound, a deep, low hum, like a drum beat, coming from the ground. The guards froze. Even the king faltered, his eyes narrowing as he looked around. The elders started murmuring, their voice trembling. I heard one word over and over again. Yame, the sky god. Suddenly, a figure appeared at the edge of courtyard. A woman, her skin was dark as midnight, her eyes glowing like embers. She wore a simple cloth, but there was power in the way she stood, the way she walked. Everyone stepped back as she approached, even the guards. The elders started murmuring, their voice trembled. I heard one word over again. She stood, the way she walked. Everyone stepped back as she approached, even the guards. She stopped in front of the king, her gaze steady. You have gone too far, she said. Her voice was quiet, but carried like thunder. The king's face twisted in anger. Who are you to speak to me like that? He demanded. The woman didn't answer. She just looked at him. And for the first time, I saw fear in the king's eyes. Real fear. You think you are untouchable, the woman said, but every man answers for his deeds, even kings. The king opened his mouth to speak, but before he could, the ground beneath him cracked. A deep jagged line split the earth, and the king stumbled, falling to his nails. The woman didn't move. Your time is over, she said. And just like that, the king was gone, swallowed by the earth. He screamed, echoing for only a moment before they were silent. The woman stormed to the ground. Let this be a warning, she said. Power without justice brings destruction. Protect each other. Stand for what is right, or you will share his fate. Then she was gone. No one spoke for a long time. The guards dropped their weapons and fled, slowly began to disperse, whispering prayers and promises. My brother, shaken but alive, took my hand and we walked away together. The king never returned. Some say he was dragged to the underwood by the spirit of the man. He had killed. Others say the sky God sent the woman to remind us of what happened when we forgot our humanity. All I know is this: the wind still changes sometimes, suddenly and sharp, and when it does, I wonder if she's still watching. The fall of the king was just the beginning. At first, people thought it was over, that justice has been served, and peace would return. But the curse lingered. The king's palace began a place of ruin and chaos. It started with his children. There were many sons and daughters from the countless women he had taken. After the king's death, they fought over his throne. At first, it was just argument and threat. Then the bloodshed began. One son poisoned his brother food during a feast. Another ambushed his siblings in the night. The daughter were no better. They sinned, lied, and even hired mercenaries to kill their own king. By the end of the first month, most of the king's children were dead. The few who survived fled the palace, disappeared into the wilderness, too far to claim their father's legacy. The palace itself began to rot. It was strange, unnatural. The gold that had once gleamed so brightly grew dull, tarnished. The walls cracked, and no matter how much the servants cleaned, the stench of decay clung to every corner. The livestock in the royal stable died one by one, their carcasses found with no wounds, their eyes wide with terror. The crops in the king's vast field withered, even though the rain were steady. Then the king's wife began to leave. Some left quietly in the night, returning in their father's house. Others were more dramatic, taking what little they could carry and abandoning everything else. They said the palace was haunted, that they could hear the cries of the women who had been taken against their will, feel the cold hands of the dead brushing against them as they sleep. One woman, the youngest of the king's wives, screamed in the marketplace that the king had come to her dream, his body covered in bones, his mouth full of ash. He had begged for her help, she said, but she had refused. She left that same day, her face pale, her eyes wild. Soon, the palace was empty. No one dared to go near. The servants had all fled. The guards abandoned their post, and the villagers avoided the area entirely. They said the air around the palace was heavy, that you could feel the weight of what had happened. They are pressing down on your chest. People whispering that the king's curse had spread to his land. The villagers near the palace saw strange things, shadow moving where there were no people, whispers in the wind that carries no words, animals behaving oddly, cows walked backward, chicken refusing to lay eggs. The elders said it was the sky God's punishment, that the land itself was rejecting the king's memory. But there was one thing that no one could explain. In the middle of the courtyard, where the woman had stood and condemned the king, a tree began to grow. It wasn't a normal tree. It's bark and dark, almost black, and its leaves seemed like they were made of metal. No one dared to touch it, but it grew, its branches stretching higher and higher each day. Some said the tree was a warning, a reminder of what happened when power is abused. Others said it was a gift, a symbol of justice that could not undone. I don't know what to believe. What I do know is this: the king's name is no longer spoken. His legacy is gone. His children dead or vanished. His palace a ruin. The people have started to rebuild, but the land still feels heavy, like it's waiting for something. And sometimes, when the wind shifts, I hear it again, the deep low hum, like a drum beat in the earth. It makes me think of her, the woman who appeared that day. Maybe she is still watching. Maybe the sky god is too watching.
Thanks for watching. Please subscribe.